Welcome to From Center Ice. My name is Courtney, and how are you doing, Montreal fans? I was on vacation for a little while, now I'm back, and I see that the Stanley Cup has been awarded. Okay, I did watch part of Game 3, but I also watched Game 4. So then I figured I would turn on Game 5, because you never know at that point, any game can be the last game of the season. Unfortunately, that one was, and the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup. I'm so sorry. In the last couple of months, you all got to experience the highest of highs, but then the lowest of lows. I mean, maybe it didn't get to the lowest. You weren't rooting for Toronto after all. But losing in the Cup Final does certainly suck, but on the other hand, you got to the Cup Final and nobody thought your team was going to get out of the first round, let alone win one game in the first round. And somewhere along the way, as I was keeping up with this team coming out of that first round series against Toronto and following them through the next few series that they played, I gained a soft spot for the Montreal Canadiens. There are some very exciting players on this team to watch, and all of the fans that I've been talking to in the comments of these videos, you all have made me develop a soft spot for this team. So here I am, and I'm going to wrap up the entire season for the Montreal Canadiens so we can put a bow on it and put it to rest and move into the next year. And no, I'm sorry, I won't be making videos for every Canadiens game next season. I can't do more than 3 teams. Doing 2 teams this season was already hard enough. I'm adding Toronto for next year, so I will be around. Y'all certainly play them enough. And maybe I'll pop in here and there with a video about the Habs. Who knows? The possibilities are endless, really. So let's just jump into talking about the 2020-2021 Montreal Canadiens. How was this team put together? Well, there were a few key trades, there were a few key signings, and at the end of February, they fired their coach and hired Dominic Ducharme. That was a big part of it. But let's go over these trades first. September 2nd, 2020, the Montreal Canadiens acquired Jake Allen and a 7th round pick in 2022. And all that they gave to St. Louis was a 2020 3rd round pick and 7th round pick. That's a pretty good deal, seeing as how Carey Price went down with an injury. Jake Allen had to step in, and he was very good in doing so. Big trade for the Habs. September 12th, 2020, they acquired Joel Edmondson from Carolina. Well, they got the signing rights for Joel Edmondson, and they gave up a 2020 5th round pick to do so. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and that brings us to October, where they made the huge trade sending Max Domi to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Josh Anderson. They also gave a pick to Columbus, but we'll just focus on the other part. And at the time of that trade, I don't think anybody around the hockey world really understood it for Montreal. Maybe I'm wrong, I certainly wasn't following the Habs very closely then, but it seemed like it was a shock for everybody. Like, Max Domi is kind of a solid player, and Josh Anderson has kind of been trending downward. He's not an offensive player, but it seems like maybe that worked out for them. I did like Josh Anderson in Columbus. I wasn't sure about this trade, and especially the signing that came after that, but we'll get to the signings after the trades. It's only been 1 year of having Josh Anderson for the Habs so far, but he did score some pretty big goals in the playoffs. And I mean, Columbus didn't even make the playoffs, so who won that trade? Then we get to the middle of the season, and on March 26th, they acquired Eric Staal from the Buffalo Sabres. He was the first player to be rescued from the Sabres team. The Habs sent a 2021 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick the other way. They really like dealing with 3rd and 5th round picks. Just kind of seems to be a trend, I noticed. On April 11th, they acquired John Merrill from Detroit, once again trading a 2021 5th round pick and Hayden Verbeek. The very next day, they made a trade with the Philadelphia Flyers, acquiring Eric Gustafson at 50% salary retained for a 2022 7th round pick. And at the time, that trade made me laugh a lot, you know, being a Blackhawks fan, having to deal with Eric Gustafson for a few years. But that also seemed to work out pretty good in the playoffs. So what do I know? Now let's go into the signings. They signed Alexander Romanov to his 3-year ELC. The Habs signed Joel Edmondson to a 4-year deal worth $3.5 million per season. They gave Jake Evans an extension for 2 years at $750,000. They extended Jeff Petrie and his Bloodshot Eyes for 4 years, that deal carrying a $6.25 million average. And here's the Josh Anderson deal that I referenced just a few minutes ago. 7 years at $5.5 million per year. Now I have to ask you Habs fans, after watching the playoffs and even after watching the regular season, how are you now feeling about this deal? It is long. You have 6 more years of Josh Anderson, barring a trade. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Let me know. Maybe the best signing of them all was Tyler Toffoli. They signed him to a 4-year deal at $4.25 million per year. After acquiring Jake Allen, they signed him for 2 years, that deal being worth $2.875 million per year. They gave Brendan Gallagher a big ol' extension, 6 years for $6.5 million per year. And if Tyler Toffoli wasn't the best signing, at least for this season, the best signing could have been Corey Perry. He signed for 1 year at $750,000. And then you have the eternally smiling rookie Cole Caulfield. He signed his 3-year entry-level deal after his college season was up. So those were the trades and the signings heading into this season and during the middle of the season. It wasn't all of them, but it was the key ones. And that's kind of how this team was made up, you know, aside from the guys who were already there. So how did the 2020-2021 season shake out for the Montreal Canadiens? In 56 games, they had a record of 24-21-11 for 59 points, which was good for 4th in the North Division. That being the last playoff spot in the division. So they secured that last spot and then did a pretty good job with it, but we'll get there. They had a home record of 13-11-4 and an away record of 11-10-7. Their power play was 17th in the league at 19.2%, and the penalty kill was 23rd in the league. They finished the regular season with a penalty kill percentage of 78.5. Got a little better in the playoffs. And because I became a fan of looking at the goal differential for teams this season, the Montreal Canadiens had a total of 159 goals for and 168 goals against, which gave them a -9 goal differential. Which really, considering that they were in a division with the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid just going off, and the Toronto Maple Leafs with Austin Matthews winning the Rocket this year, I'd say a differential of -9 really isn't too bad. Now, how about some player stats? We will start with the goaltenders. And since he played more games, we will begin the goaltender section with Jake Allen. He played 29 games for the Montreal Canadiens this year and had a record of 11-12-5. He had a 2.68 goals against average and a .901 save percentage. Now, Carey Price. Price played 25 games for the Habs this year, again, injury, and he had a record of 12-7-5. He had a goals against average of 2.64 and a save percentage of .901. So his goals against average was slightly better than Jake Allen, and his save percentage was slightly worse. Hockey! Now the top 10 scoring leaders in the regular season for the Montreal Canadiens. Number 1 is Tyler Toffoli. He played 52 games for the Habs this year, and he put up 28 goals, 16 assists for 44 points. Number 2, we have defenseman Jeff Petrie, before the Bloodshot Eyes. He played 55 games for the Habs this year and had 12 goals and 30 assists for 42 points. Not too shabby. Number 3, we have the rising star, Nick Suzuki. He played all 56 games for the Habs this season, and he put up 15 goals and 26 assists for 41 points. Number 4, we have Thomas Tatar, who was scratched for most of the playoffs. I still don't really understand that one, but I'm not the coach. Through 50 games, he had 10 goals and 20 assists for 30 points. Number 5 is the big trade and signing guy, Josh Anderson. Through 52 games, he scored 17 goals and 7 assists for 24 points. Number 6, we have defensive dynamo Philip Deneau. In 53 games, he scored 5 goals and put up 19 assists for 24 points. Number 7, big extension man himself, Brendan Gallagher. In 35 games, he put up 14 goals and 9 assists for 23 points. He was also injured along with Carey Price, both of them playing a game in the AHL before the playoffs started. Number 8 is Jonathan Drouin. In 44 games played this season, he put up 2 goals and 21 assists for a total of 23 points before taking a leave from the team. Number 9, Corey Perry. He played 49 games for the Habs, putting up 9 goals and 12 assists for 21 points. And number 10, also scratched in the playoffs, at least in that last game, we have Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Through 56 games, he put up 5 goals and 15 assists for 20 points. And since they're of special interest, I added 2 more guys to this list, the first one being Erik Gustafsson. I just always have to bring him back. After being acquired by the Habs at the trade deadline, he played 5 games for them, scoring 0 goals and putting up 2 assists for 2 points. And once again, the eternally smiling rookie Cole Caulfield. Once he joined the team after finishing his college season, he played 10 games and he put up 4 goals and 1 assist for 5 points. So that was the regular season for the Montreal Canadiens, and at this point, it really doesn't seem like the regular season matters at all. Maybe it's recency bias with the playoffs just ending, and that's what people are more focused on, but it seems like if you go 4 rounds deep in the playoffs, you just kind of forget about the regular season. Although going from 4th in the division to the Stanley Cup Final is kind of something to be excited about. So, the Montreal Canadiens played 22 playoff games. They had a record of 13-9. They scored 51 goals while allowing 54, so they had a goal differential of -3. A little better than the -9 from the regular season, but also significantly less games. But also Tampa kind of lit them up in the finals, so that would have been different and maybe even a positive before coming into this final series. I'd have to go back and add it up, but I'm just assuming here. So we all know how the first 3 rounds of the playoffs went. Round 1, they faced the Toronto Maple Leafs. They won game number 1. They then lost 3 straight games, and Toronto was leading the series 3-1. They only had to win 1 more game to advance, but in came the Montreal Canadiens with that fearless, we are going to win attitude, and they won 3 games, pushing that to the Game 7 after winning 2 straight, winning that Game 7. I'm still not over it, but we're friends now, Habs fans. We are friends now. And like I said, I developed a soft spot for your team. Still don't quite know how I feel about that, but here we are. Then in round 2, after sweeping the Edmonton Oilers, in come the Winnipeg Jets to join the Montreal Canadiens, and then they get swept by the Habs. So they delivered a sweep, and then they got swept. I gotta think Edmonton fans were happy about that one. And then the Habs left Canada. Round 3, the Vegas Golden Knights. This seemed like it was going to be a tough test, especially after that first game. They lost game number 1. Vegas just plainly looked like the better team. But then Montreal won 2 straight games. And then they lost a game, so the series was tied 2-2. And then Montreal won 2 straight games again. And they advanced to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in 28 years. Carey Price's first trip to the Stanley Cup Final. And if the Vegas Golden Knights weren't a tough opponent, the Tampa Bay Lightning certainly were going to be. And they were. Game 1 saw the Montreal Canadiens losing 5-1 to Tampa Bay. Montreal's lone goal scorer was Ben Sherratt, while Tampa got goals from Chernak, Gord, Stamkos, and 2 from Kucherov. Game number 2, a little better. Still not great. The Habs lost 3-1 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. The lone goal scorer for the Habs was Nick Suzuki, while Tampa got goals from Cirelli, Coleman, and Palat. Game number 3, the Montreal Canadiens finally scored more than 1 goal, but they only scored 3 while allowing 6, so that was once again a loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who was then leading the series 3-0, and oh my god, were the Habs going to get swept. They finally got to the Stanley Cup Final after 28 seasons. It's a great story. They just worked their way through Canada. They beat Vegas. Nobody had them winning that series, and now they're on the verge of getting swept in their home building. That would have sucked. The 3 goal scorers for Montreal in that game 3 were Deneau, Suzuki, and Perry, while Tampa got goals from Jan Ruda, Hedman, Kucherov, 2 from Tyler Johnson, and then another one from Blake Coleman. So game 4 in Montreal, in the Bell Center, in front of Habs fans, on the brink of being swept, the Montreal Canadiens managed to win that game in overtime, 3-2. And I don't know, guys. If that game had been in Tampa Bay, or if the Tampa Bay Lightning players had been able to bring friends and family, they might have gotten swept. I know. People are gonna say, teams don't just throw games. That's not how this works. Well, if you go back and watch at least that first period, Tampa Bay looked like their game plan was, how hard can we look like we're trying to play without winning? I mean, Nikita Kucherov wasn't taking slap shots on the power play. That's just what he does. One-timers from his spot, like he's Ovechkin, but on the other side. And then he took a couple and he missed the net completely. That's not going to happen that many times if they are trying to win. Now, I could be totally wrong. They could have just honestly come into that game being like, let's just end this if we can. Sure, it would be fun to win in front of our home crowd, have our friends and our family there, but if we lose one game, anything can happen, so let's just end this as quickly as possible. And then Montreal came out, had a great game, and won in overtime, but just deep in my soul, I don't think that's what happened. But it doesn't really matter, because there was a Stanley Cup Final game in Montreal, in the Bell Center, and the fans got to see a winning game. After 28 years without being in the Stanley Cup Final, that had to feel amazing. It really sucks that they weren't allowed to have a full building like the Lightning were. That place would have just been deafening. I'm pretty sure that us at home would also be deaf. Even if we turned our TV all the way down, it would be that loud in the Bell Center. So it sucks, but what are you gonna do? I'm glad that they were at least able to have some fans there. That's great. And I mean, we got maybe one of the best reactions of all time with Carey Price just not looking like he cared at all that Josh Anderson scored in overtime, because the man does not have a pulse. It's pretty funny though. So Tampa Bay's goal scorers in game number 4 were Barclay Goodrow and Patrick Maroon. For the Montreal Canadiens, Josh Anderson got them on the board first. Alexander Romanov scored his first goal and only goal of the playoffs, and then Josh Anderson, again, in overtime, wins the game. And what a goal. That was a great play. That game as a whole kind of sucked, maybe not for you diehard Montreal Canadiens fans, but I think for everybody else it kind of did, because you know that Tampa wasn't trying to win. And for a long time in the first period and the second period, the Habs really only just had to take over the game, but it's like they just kept shooting themselves in the foot and they wouldn't take hold of it and just run with it. It was so frustrating to watch. Again, maybe I'm totally wrong, but I don't think that I am. But again, none of it matters. The Habs won. They won in the Bell Center. They won in front of their fans. That is a great moment, even though the very next game, it would all be over. So, Game 5, back in Tampa Bay, and once again, Andrei Vasilevsky pitches a shutout in a series-clinching game, a Stanley Cup clinching game, and the only goal that was scored was by a rookie in Ross Colton. So even though the Habs lost, I mean, it's kind of cool that they only lost 1-0 and didn't get blown out in the last game of the season. Looking for the silver lining here. And that was the end of it. The Tampa Bay Lightning went back-to-back, winning the Stanley Cup once again, and the Montreal Canadiens had to fly home, and at least Brendan Gallagher had a very bad arrival, seeing as his home was burglarized, apparently. Talk about kicking a guy when he's down. But let's look at some player stats. We will start with the goaltender and Carey Price, seeing as he was the only goaltender that played for the Habs in the playoffs, which is good to see. I'm glad he did not get re-injured or worsen his injury. He was probably still injured, seeing as he came into the playoffs injured, but he played freaking amazing either way. Of course, 22 games played, a record of 13-9, just like the team, because, as I said, he was the only goaltender that played. He finished with a 2.28 goals against average and a .924 save percentage. That's just plain great, especially seeing how many goals they gave up in that final series. With him to finish with stats like that, you know how amazing he was for the rest of the playoffs. On to the top 10 playoff scorers for the team, and number 1 is Nick Suzuki. Through 22 games, he scored 7 goals and 9 assists for 16 points. What a coming out season for that guy. Of course, he was good before, but I mean, he was really good this year, especially in the playoffs. Number 2, we've got Tyler Toffoli. In 22 games, he scored 5 goals and put up 9 assists for 14 points. Number 3, the eternally smiling rookie Cole Caulfield. Through 20 games, he scored 4 goals and added 8 assists for 12 points. Coming out of college, college, playing in the NHL, going to the Stanley Cup Final, and being top 3 on your team in scoring. That's pretty good, I'd say. And he's still considered a rookie next year. Number 4. Corey Perry. Through 22 games, he scored 4 goals and added 6 assists for 10 points. Almost lost his nose in the process, but he kept it. Number 5, Yoel Armia. In 21 games, he scored 5 goals, added 3 assists for 8 points. Number 6, and also mysteriously scratched, is Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Through 19 games, he scored 5 goals and added 3 assists for 8 points. Number 7, we have Eric Stahl. In 21 games, he scored 2 goals and added 6 assists for 8 points. Number 8, the big trade, the big signing man, Josh Anderson. In 22 games, he scored 5 goals and added 1 assist for 6 points, some of those goals being very big for the team. Number 9, Paul Byron. In 22 games, he scored 3 goals, adding 3 assists for 6 points, and he was the one who got the game-winning goal in Game 1 against the Toronto Maple Leafs on a very, pretty goal. And number 10, Brendan Gallagher. In 22 games, he scored 2 goals, adding 4 assists for 6 points. And I added one because I always have to bring him back. Like I said, Erik Gustafsson. He played 16 games for the Montreal Canadiens in the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. He scored 1 goal, added 2 assists for 3 points, and if you do recall, when they inserted him into the lineup in that Toronto series, they went on a 7-game winning streak. I can't explain it, but they did. And just for funsies, let's revisit the special teams. So in the playoffs, the Habs ended 8th amongst playoff teams on the power play in the playoffs. They had a percentage of 18.9. And I said the penalty kill got a little better from the regular season. They ended 1st amongst playoff teams on the penalty kill with a ridiculous 91.8%. Wow, that's all you can really say about that, is just wow. Carey Price was amazing. And the other guys too, but Carey Price was amazing. So what's next for the Montreal Canadiens? Well, it's the off-season now. We have the expansion draft coming up. We have the entry draft coming up. They have 11 picks in it right now. Some of those could be traded away. They could acquire more. Who knows? There's plenty of time for Bergevin to do things. And GMs always do things. As I'm filming this right now, I'm waiting for the official trade announcement for Duncan Keith going to the Edmonton Oilers for Caleb Jones. So there's that. Anyway, I'm talking about the Habs. So after the expansion draft and the entry draft, you have free agency. Of course, we don't know if they're going to add another big free agent like they did last year in Tyler Toffoli and Corey Perry, but they do have some free agents on the team still that they need to either re-sign or let go of. We'll start with the non-roster free agents. We have Michael Frolik, Jordan Wheel, Joseph Blandisi is an RFA, Michael Pezzetta is an RFA, Ryan Poehling is an RFA, Jacob Lucchini is an RFA, then they have Alex Belzile and Gustav Olofsson, then there's a couple more RFAs in Otto Leskinen, Cale Fleury, and goaltender Michael McNiven, and then goaltender Charlie Lindgren is a UFA. I don't know much about the Laval team since, you know, the Ice Hogs didn't face them at all this past year, being how they only played within their own divisions. So I don't know who they're going to re-sign or let go of, but let's move to the roster players. There's Corey Perry and Yoel Armia, Philip Deneau, Eric Stahl, Thomas Tatar, John Merrill, Erik Gustafsson, and then they have 2 RFAs in Arturi Lehkonen and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Now, I'm not going to pretend that all of a sudden I am just an expert on the Montreal Canadiens. I know exactly what they are going to do. I really only paid attention to them this season in the playoffs. I have no idea. It seems like a sure thing that Thomas Tatar is gone. Philip Deneau could have signed a big extension last summer. He chose to wait, so does he want to return to Montreal? It would make sense after the awesome run that they had, but if he doesn't want to play third-line center, maybe not. He could always come home to Chicago. We drafted you. Eric Stahl is probably gone just due to age. Corey Perry said he wanted to come back. Whether there's mutual interest or not, we will find out. I'm sure they signed their RFAs. John Merrill, they probably let go of. I would be shocked if they didn't re-sign Yoel Armia. And the biggest question mark has to be Erik Gustafsson. He is always the biggest question mark. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. The biggest question mark is Erik Gustafsson. I can't imagine that he would require too much to re-sign. They seem to like him well enough in the playoffs? Is he a guy you bring back, or is he a guy who you just say, thank you very much for your contributions during this playoff run, but be free and have fun wherever you sign next? I have no idea. We shall see. But aside from all of the player movement, there are a couple of players on this Habs roster that I am very interested in next season. After the average regular season and then obviously the great run in the playoffs, I'm very intrigued in what these guys' years will look like in 2021-22. First up is Carey Price. Is he just going to have that fire in his eyes wanting to get back to the Stanley Cup Final and prove that he can do it once and for all? They're gonna have to bolster up the team around him if they want to defeat teams like Tampa Bay, who could very well end up in the Stanley Cup Final again next year. We don't know who they're going to lose over the summer, but once they just got on their wagon, they seemed unbeatable. And can he go the season without getting injured? That is a big thing to watch for next year. Second is Cole Caulfield. Again, he's still going to be a rookie next season. Yes, he played in the Stanley Cup Final, and he's going to be a rookie next season. You saw all sorts of flashes of greatness out of this kid. Does he continue that into next year and get better? Does he go through a little bit of the slump adjusting to a full season in the NHL? Either way, I'm sure he'll be smiling the whole way. The next one is Nick Suzuki. After his great year this year, does he take another step in his game next season? Does he become, without a doubt, their first line center? Which leads me to my next guy in Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Which one of these guys is going to be number one? Who's going to be number two? I would guess Suzuki and then Kotkaniemi, but with Jesperi having a contract being signed, you never know what Marc Bergevin will tell him, but he also was scratched during the playoffs, so that also goes into my guess of Suzuki is above him. Jesperi Kotkaniemi is the number 2 center, which is not a bad thing at all. Look at Pittsburgh. Crosby, Malkin. Second line center, not a bad thing. And rounding out my list is Josh Anderson. What kind of season is he going to give the Habs next year? We will just have to wait and see. So the season for the Montreal Canadiens is officially wrapped. They came so close to that Stanley Cup, but still so far. Unfortunately, again, I am sorry, Habs fans, but I know you had fun on the ride. I hope you enjoyed this. I have enjoyed interacting with all of you and seeing how the young guys on your team perform in the playoffs. It's been a good time, even though I'm still upset over the first round, but we have to get over it eventually, or not. But anyway, if you would like to hear more from me or from Center Ice, you can head on over to FromCenterIce.com. There's links to everywhere you can find us over there. If you're more of a social media person, there are links to all of those platforms down in the description. Go give us a follow and such. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in throughout the playoffs. I greatly appreciate it, and I don't know when I will be talking about your team next if you are a Habs fan watching this, but I will catch you all then. Bye, guys. Thank you all for watching. Please hit that subscribe button to catch more From Center Ice content. If you could, hit the like button on this video, maybe share it with a friend or two. And while you're here, check out the podcast playlist and catch up on some old episodes. We will catch y'all next time. Bye!